Welcome to Headlines Lando Lakes and welcome to the OP45 channel. Today I have my client Ant, and today we're doing a low taper on my guy. He said his last barber pushed his taper too high. So today we're gonna focus on not going into his curls and keeping the taper real low. I'm gonna show you guys some problems that you may run into during this haircut. Let's get into it. Okay, so the key to executing a low taper is to always attack the taper area very conservatively. So I'm gonna start with my number one guard and create a light gradient just below his temple area. Now, I'm only gonna go about a finger's width, and what I usually like to do is map out the haircut to make sure I have enough room to execute the proper taper and it's proportioned perfectly. So I'm gonna have my number one guard about here, and this is gonna give me enough room with the number two guard just to blend in and stay below his curls. I'm gonna go in there and then change to my number two guard, close it up. And now we're just very quickly creating my second panel, my second gradient into this fade. And so I always like to set my base and kind of work myself to the top and then work myself back down just so I know I'm not raising that fade too high. And that's usually the problem when you're doing low tapers, is you tend to chase and follow the fade up into unwanted areas and you ruin the integrity of the haircut that the client requested. So now I'm jumping to my 1.5 guard you see, and we're gonna start open, which is gonna be the longest length, and then work our way back down all the way till we get to the bottom. And we're gonna start to see our lightest points here when we're using our trimmer, and it's gonna be complete and create the gradients for our fade. And just something I want to point out really quick here, guys, using just the outer left of this clipper, because I don't want to potentially use this part of the clipper and conflict of cutting off the curls as well as going too high into this taper. So just something that simple with clipper mechanics can keep you from having those problems that we're trying to combat and give the client the haircut that he wants. I can see that the clipper's not cutting any hair anymore, nothing's coming off. We're gonna switch to our number one guard, which is again, the guard we originally started with. Here we are again, working our way back down, starting with the blade open, and we're gonna work it all the way to close. So again, there's not any hair being cut off anymore. So we can see we have the hardest part of the haircut done. We went from the middle to the top and made sure that was blended in well. And now we're going from the middle back down to the bottom. We got a half guard on. We're gonna open it up just like we did every other guard and work our way down to close. Now we're down to our blade work. We went from our half guard, and this is going to essentially be the last step that's going to bring our fade and our low taper all together. But I wanted to point out and show you guys the reason I'm switching clippers is because the clipper that we were using has clicks on it, and sometimes when I use click lever clippers in this area, I can kind of see the steps in the fade. So we're switching to a clipper that has a free floating lever, and that way we can cut and place the measurements precisely where we want it, depending and reacting to the fade. And again, just like we started with every other blade and measurement, we're gonna start open and work our way down to close. Now we can see that our low taper is nice and complete. The integrity of the haircut is there. We didn't go too high into the client's curls, but we also achieved the lightest gradients to the darkest gradients. Now we're just gonna take this haircut a step further and use our trimmers to completely bald out this haircut. We're gonna use the same mechanics that we used with the clipper and use the corner of the clippers this way instead of that way, so we don't potentially move into the client's curls and potentially taking this fade higher. As you can see, I'm pulling the client's skin taut, making sure it's firm and it's not bouncing all over the place. And that's another problem that you guys can probably have, and that's could potentially make you push your taper higher. And now I'm gonna flip my clipper over because that is a closer look and a closer measurement than it is with my clipper flipped over this way. And now to take it one step further, the last final step of this taper before we line up in detail is the shaver. It's gonna get these little small, tiny hairs all the way down, and they're going against the grain for the closest finish possible. I like to get through my systems as fast as I possibly can because we already know that we're gonna come back in detail later. I'm satisfied and cool with the result of this low taper because it has the integrity. Gonna grab, again, our trimmers and just put our picture in a frame so we can begin to see this haircut a little bit better. And now I'm just going ahead and attack the C cup, starting from the bottom and working my way up. And this is just a rough draft because we'll get in the lineup portion in a minute. Now I can see our picture a little bit better, and I see just a few dark spots right here at the top. Instead of going in with my clipper and potentially raising my fade, I like to use the scissors just to be a little bit more precise, and I can go through and pick out certain areas that I want to make lighter so we can make this fade seamless. Place it inside my comb and just make a few small cuts and comb afterwards. And then go back in again, do the same thing. I do the same thing and as needed. And I want to make an important note that when you're doing this, you're thinking about the shape and how you're holding the comb. As you can see, I went in and scooped out because I know that I want to take the angle going upward instead of flat. If I'm going flat, I know I'm going into his curls, but if you simply put my comb in and angle it out, I know that I'm going up and away from his curls. I'm going to switch to my blending shears because I want to make a softer look right in this area. And now just a couple more times and we'll move on because you don't want to stay in the area too long and have your eyes fixed on the same thing. You want to get through your system and be efficient as you possibly can inside the barbershop. Now we've successfully completed the low taper on his right side. Let's move on to the client's left side. Same as last time, we're working our way up into the taper. So we want to start every guideline closed because we want to see a nice, consistent guideline. That way we have somewhere to follow. So starting with our clipper, lever closed, and we're going to map out the same as we did the other side because we want nice, even proportion. We want the sides to look exactly the same. Closed, and number one here in this area. And if you're a beginner barber, you can have your fingers next to the panels just like I do here. And as you advance, you'll kind of visually see those guidelines, and you don't have to have your hands there anymore. So our purple guard, which is our number 2 guard, and we're going to follow our guide. Keep having your fingers to the side is going to keep you from going higher than you need to go. All right, now we're going to switch to our next guard, which is the 1.5 guard. It's a step below our purple number 2 guard. We're going to go blade open. And now you can even see we're using the corner to see this way. Same clipper mechanics on this side instead of this. But if you remember on the other side, we were cutting with these teeth. We just switched sides, guys. So now using just the corner. And now to our red number 1 guard, open.
What is your time slot?
45 minutes an hour. My slots are usually around 45 minutes to an hour. And I feel like every barber, they'll find their sweet spot depending on what their goal is. I've seen barbers who are trying to pump out haircuts as quick as possible. They usually find their sweet spot around a 30-minute range and sometimes even a 20-minute range if they get fast and really efficient. And I feel like barbers who are trying to give their clients a little bit more of the experience, as well as, you might have some barbers and artists who are trying to create content for themselves. I found that the 45-minute spot and the hour spot is a sweet spot for those barbers. And now again, same thing on this side, guys. We're gonna switch to our free floating lever. We're gonna start open. And you can see we still have just a little bit of hairs throughout here. And we want to take this a step lower so we can make sure that this is a true low skin taper. And so the trimmer is going to take it all the way to skin and knock those little hairs out. And now the shaver, and we're only going to use one side of the foil because we're only working in a small area here. And now it's time to put our picture in a frame. So whatever you gotta do to get there, you get there. Your client's gonna appreciate it. And now we're gonna work on the client's C-cup. Again, we wanna maintain the integrity of this entire haircut so we can see he has a nice natural line here. We don't wanna essentially push this or any area back. We're just going to go to the first lightest hair that we see and make our shape. Trying not to push it in too far. This isn't gonna be essentially the sharpest look, but what it is gonna ensure is this client haircut lasts a while. Instead of pushing them in too far, then a couple of days later, you'll start to see that grow back. It's gonna keep his visits not having to come back so often. Some barbers will say that's not good for the business, but when you're building a relationship with your clients, you wanna keep your business as honest as possible. And what's best for him is best for you. All right, so now we complete the taper on both sides, and now we wanna get into the lineup. Throughout the haircut, I was talking about having a rough draft for your client's lineup, but this is gonna be the full and close to possibly the final draft of the haircut. So we wanna prep ourselves and be precise as possible. So we're gonna start by lifting this client's edge up back, and we're gonna use clips to keep this hair out of the way. That way we can work freely. The same way we held the client's ear down on the side, the edge to sides, this is gonna be our barrier to kind of see and work clearly, just so we can create the sharpest lineup possible. Now that we have established a nice clean section for the client's hairline, I'm gonna clip that off. Clean up some of these loose hairs, and that's gonna make it easy for us to get a nice, clean, sharp lineup. We're gonna use the number 1 guard because we still want this line to be dark. We're actually just gonna attack the ends because you see that's curling just a little bit, and we wanna get rid of some of that curl. So close the clipper up and just attack those ends. Now we're gonna assist the lineup with just a bit of holding spray, and we're gonna assist it with cold air on our blow dryer. One thing from lining up that we can bring into this haircut is we will work with the higher side if need be. That way we're making sure, even though we are pushing him back, that we're not pushing him back. I can see clearly that this side is a little bit higher than this side, so I'm gonna start in the middle and then work my way out to that side, and then work my way to his left side.
No razor. I don't use a razor on this.
You wanna make sure you're combing and seeing the entire visual of your lineup and work as you go. Being careful just to tap and go instead of using your clipper and falling off track and then having to reset yourself. It's a little bit easier just to tap. That way you're staying on track. And again, start in the middle and working your way out. Now we're gonna attack this sidebar. You have to be careful to make sure that you're creating the proper shape and the proper lining for each particular client. We can see here, his sits right about the edge of his eyebrow. So we want to maintain the integrity of his lineup and not push him too far in. And I know sometimes barbers can get caught up in going and making every lineup straight, but we see his is kind of diagonal. So we're going to follow that line. Because if you don't, and you actually change the angle from going diagonal into straight, it will look good from this angle, from the side view. But if you turn it to the front, what you're actually gonna end up seeing is the line is gonna be darker here in this corner here up at the top, but as you get towards the bottom, you're gonna kind of see the angle start to round off back this way. So lineup's all about creating illusions. You're trying to put a straight line on a circular object. So sometimes in a lineup, instead of actually going straight, you have to round it. So same thing on the sidebar as we did in the front. I'm gonna start in that corner here. And I like to go back and forth from this horizontal to vertical just to ensure I have a nice 90-degree angle. And I'm gonna do my other sidebar, and then we're gonna work on the C-cups together. Comb that forward and knock off all the excess that's overhanging on the edge up. To make sure my front lineup is proportionate even, I'll create a center point with my comb, and I'll see how balanced it is. And so I can see we have a nice lineup, but just slightly here in the middle. And that could just be because the hairs are kind of coming down and out this way. But we comb every time to ensure and make sure that what we're seeing is accurate. This is not a troublesome area really. You just have to pay a little bit more attention to it and make sure you're not pushing the client back. Keep combing just to make sure, just to check. We're gonna work on our C-cup area and make this nice and sharp, but still natural to what the client already has. And we see we have a nice, strong corner here, but this side is a little just weaker here in this bottom corner. But we're gonna do our best as we can to match it. We're gonna use our comb again and pivot from this side to this side just to see how much room we have to play with. We can maneuver just through this area, but not digging too far into this. Now we're gonna take our line to the next level. We're gonna use our standard razor and we're gonna actually take the ends off just because I want us to sit nice and flush inside the holder. And sometimes when you break it, those ends are just a little uneven and it can affect how the blade sits inside the holder. Just going to the client sidebar here. I'm gonna stretch the skin with my thumb, have a razor at a 45-degree angle. And I'm gonna move in a slow back and forth motion until we achieve our desired look. And now starting at the bottom, and we're gonna work our way into our C-cup. And we're pretty much trying to imagine a corner here. We don't wanna dig back too far, because again, that's when we'll take our C-cup area a little bit too higher and potentially our vertical bar area. Making the skin taut and firm with my thumb, 45-degree angle, back and forth motion, slowly until the desired look. Thumb, pull, 45-degree, slow, back and forth. I like to use the other clipper to start off my haircuts and my tapers and fades just to save some of that battery life. And it's a nice strong clipper as well with a bigger motor. So if I need to debulk any haircut, I can. This is a more softer magnetic motor, so it cuts slower, but it's perfect for detailing. And again, with our detail work, we like to stay conservative and just work our way down, going from the top down to the bottom. Instead of the bottom going to the top, because this fade is more about keeping it low and keeping it nice and consistent as opposed to having it really, really high. We want to give this client a nice, clean line up here in the back with a nice round line up to complement the shape of his head. And also, he wants to maintain full length on his curls. He doesn't want to taper just yet because he likes having curls all the way around and just rocking a nice taper. So we're gonna apply some holding spray, again, sanitizing the skin, as well as locking the hair in place. So I'm going with a circular motion to complement the shape. And I'm just using the tip of the teeth and going around, instead of using my full blade and tapping and going. Just moving the clipper and sliding, following that shape. Start at the guy we already have and work our way to the bottom, just to make sure we're nice and consistent. We're gonna go round through there instead of square. And this is all preference to the client, but as a barber, we can recommend these things too, and I think this complements his head shape and his haircut nicely. This part is already done, same thing like on the other side.
Yeah. And I bet it was pretty good. We got Georgia taking on Missouri fall.
And really only using this side of the blade's teeth, the right side, and working our way around. And clean underneath. All right, bro, check out the cut. Let me know what you think.
It look good, it look good.
Yeah, this lady's
For sure.
like between Odessa and Tarsus.
For sure.
That's cool?
Yeah.
All right, bro. All right, y'all. See you guys on the next one.